ago, we worked with Ernst & Young to try to put some facts behind what would be a strategy that can work. And I'll share with you what we have. So depending on who you talk to, there's a shortfall of somewhere between 22 and 28 million houses. You will require about 700,000 houses to be built every year if in 20 years we will catch up with the shortfall. You need 60 trillion in Naira if only you will pull out that money from budget. Is it possible? So we need to know the size of the elephant we're dealing with. What this means, what this statistics means, is that government can lead, but the money for the private sector must follow. And what this means is that while government provides successful policy, we must provide the environment that makes it safe for the private sector to put money. It takes us to another question. And I'll challenge anyone here to contradict that position. Is there any country in the world that has successfully delivered on a housing policy without the support of government? No. I took the board of directors of Family Homes Funds to Morocco. And Morocco is probably the biggest success on the African continent in terms of dealing with housing issues. They are so successful that the government and its agencies are now building houses for the upper scale. So the government itself is now building luxury houses. And we sat with the minister and the permanent secretary and we said, please, we're your African brothers. Tell us, how did you achieve this? And they told us a story. It's not very long. The king of Morocco provided clear political leadership. And he said to the entire country, I'm taking housing. It is my baby. And everybody is going to support it. For the next 2-3 years, put a tax on 1, 2, 3, 4. Pull that money together into a fund. On the back of that fund, provide long-term, low-cost mortgages. So you hear your mortgage. You hear where it's coming from. You hear how they did it. We'll provide long-term, low-cost mortgages for plumbers, for lawyers, for architects, for everyone that wants to get a house to live in. Then they added the other sweeteners, like regulating how delivery partners ensure that they reduce delivery risk by delivering on time and on quality. And if you don't do that, there are punitive sanctions. And at the end of all of this, they pulled it all together. By the way, a Nigerian company built 6,000 houses in that project in Morocco. Can't we do it in Nigeria? Finally, from where Murphy is looking at it, what does Murphy think should be done? We must have a system that delivers long-term, low-cost mortgages to enable the demand side, kickstart the financial lubrication that is required. We must have off-take guarantees. Where can you go to today in Nigeria that you can find off-take guarantees? We must have off-take guarantees. So if the developer is building 2,000 houses for police, for some trader association, there is an assurance that there will be an off-take. Then, is there a digital platform such that a man in Sokoto, Port Harcourt, wherever, can see a development that is happening 20, 30, 40 kilometers away on the screen and say, I want to buy house number 1A on road F1, so that it is a market or a platform that allows a seamless handshake and people can consummate those transactions with the help of the PMIs and the NMRC eventually refinances, and we do the circle all over again. I think I'd like to stop here and allow Mr. Akinlusi to continue.
Thank you very much, Sonny Yakub. Well said. Before I call on the Reverend Chime, he talked about the issue of offtake guarantee. What is he speaking to? Effective demand. People don't want to build houses, and they are not taking up. If you build houses and they are not taking up, the banks will come after you, basically. And that is an issue. And that leads us to the next point, issue of mortgage guarantee company. It is very, very key. What is mortgage guarantee company? It's been on the cards, and Umban has been on this for a while. I was the former president of Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. My present president is here, the ES. We came up with mortgage guarantee company. NMRC has been championing this. The idea of mortgage guarantee company is for as low as 5% down payment, you can get a mortgage. 5%. Right now, requirement is 20-25%. If you have a mortgage guarantee scheme, mortgage guarantee system run by this, they will provide this offtake guarantee. You need offtake because effective demand. People know as little as 5%, you provide the effective demand to take up this. We must find a way to fix all these broken parts of this jigsaw puzzle. There are different parts of the puzzle. They must all come together. So I think that's what he's speaking to. Thank you for that, Sonny Yakub. Now I go on to Reverend Chime. He's a man of many parts, former president of Redan as well, and a developer in his own right, the group managing director of Copen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have an issue at hand, and I'd like to appreciate the fact that we have critical players from the government side and also from the public sector on this panel. 24 years ago, I was invited by Reverend Jolin Nyame to come and plan Jalingo. And in the process, I discovered that Jalingo was just like a local government headquarters before it was made the state capital of Taraba State. And the workers were commuting from Yola. They were coming to work 3 days, sometimes 2 days, and sometimes some of them die on the road, commuting from Yola to Jalingo. So after doing the urban renewal, urban planning for them, we raised an issue for him because he was seeing housing as a favor of shelter for the people. But we're able to explain to him that he's trying to improve the productivity of the people of Taraba State, of the civil servants, and trying to reduce the death on the road, the carnage on the people. So when that was done, he began to see housing provision for the civil servants not as a favor to the people, but as a means of increasing the productivity of the civil service. And in the process, he agreed and we were able to develop 500 housing units for them. And Federal Mortgage Bank provided the mortgage for the 50%, while Taraba State government paid as subsidy for the remaining 50%. And that was how we were able to deliver in 2 years 500 housing units, and by 2002, they have started occupying those houses. What am I speaking to? I'm speaking to the element of political will that was alluded by the Commissioner for Housing, Lagos State. Until we're able to have leaders who will see the issue in broad dimension for what it is. Before now, we had the previous panel, we all saw a young girl who was in the University of Lagos staying on top of water as a citizen. We have some of those people who serve us as the elite, whether we're in the National Assembly, whether we are ministers, where they live, as they ask in the slums of the city, makes my heart to bleed. So after that experiment in 2000 to 2002, we began a process of advocating for the political leadership to be able to look inwards and find out what do we need to do to make sure that we address this major problem. We may do it by way of subsidy, but one thing, other coin that was raised by the Honorable Commissioner is something that we needed to address. He mentioned the issue of the mentality of the people and an unwillingness to play their role for instance, in estate maintenance. Now, something happened in this country some few months ago. We have been saying that we don't have enough electricity. Now they said band A, 24 hours electricity. We can give you electricity that you want, but you have to pay for it. In my house, I go in the night and put off the light now, and I don't used to do it before. There are so many other schemes that many of us have adopted. I have reduced the number of freezers in my house. We now need only one freezer and one fridge. Before, we used to have 3 freezers, and they are on for 24 hours. So what I'm alluding to is that there's an urgent need. While we are putting pressure on government, on the political leadership, to have the political will to do a number of things, we need to also advocate on the citizens to increase both our responsibility quotient and also our productivity. Now, for those of us who are players in the mortgage and the supply side, I've always asked one question. In an average home, we have husband and wife. But when we want to profile where they will live, we use only the salary of one person. Are we serious? There are 2 people, husband and wife, living in a home. And when we want to see the kind of thing they can afford, we decide to use the salary of only one person. And I've asked them one simple question. Why are we doing this? Why can't we re-engineer the process and the structural underpinning of what we are doing, so we can be in a position to be able to ask ourselves, these 2 people, combined salary, they are living in the same house, use 30% of it, we'll be able to find that the affordability quotient will also increase. Finally, a critical component of what we have always overlooked as we're analyzing the issues is the issue of debt capital. We are looking at financing and providing for houses for those who are the low income. One of the key questions I've asked myself, who are the low income? Are they really poor? And what is our definition? I've gone around some 2 universities in this country, asked me to come in and be able to do affordability for their professors. And when we started to interrogate and meet with some of them, we discovered that some professors retire at the age of 70 without a home of their own. Are they low-income earners? They are not low-income earners. So the problem is even more higher than we're ever looking at it. The other part of it, mentioning the issue of debt capital and the issue of land management. Today, in this country, if we put together the total asset base and shareholders fund of all the mortgage companies, mortgage banks in Nigeria, one commercial bank can outclass them in terms of the total volume of what they have. Yet, these mortgage companies are the ones that will be the vehicle for mortgage creation. They are the primary mortgage banks that we will depend upon. What are we doing to make sure that we address this issue? So for us to be able to look at giving the low-income earners the housing they need, there are a basket of issues that we need to dimension appropriately. We need to measure the various activity centers in the value chain and find out what are the obstacles that we are having, both from the side of the political will, both on the side of the people to ask for the homes they can afford. Sani alluded to that. Both also on the side of the players, how can we increase their capacity? If also, down the line, I've always asked myself, in 2006, Professor Nubi here presented a paper on participation of the would-be homeowners in building their homes. I don't know whether you remember that paper you presented in 2005, 2006. How can we get them to have an ownership mentality? With all due respect, when I analyzed what we are looking at, I found out that majority of us are not fair to ourselves. Let me give the final element before I close and hand over to him. I tried to do a number on compliance costs in the sector. There are many lawyers here. I went to MBA and they said that for them to be able to be involved in a transaction and prepare the documents, you must have to be 10% of the value of the property. I went to surveyors and they gave their own figure. I went to other players in industry, and they gave various amounts. The estate agents are alluding to 5 to 10%. When I did a composite appraisal of the total compliance cost for you to be involved, I found out it was in the range of about 35 to 37%. Then I asked myself, if you go to the SEC, SEC pegged it at 3.5. If you're a player within the circle in the SEC, you have to share from that 3.5. But in our own sector, we've allowed everybody to do what they want. The state government fixed the transaction time and the transaction cost however they like, so that it has made it impossible for us to be able to do the needful of producing those houses that will meet our needs. So I think that we need to have a more holistic conversation, other than what we may have on this panel, to be able to address the issues and bring out something that will serve as a roadmap for us to get it right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Reverend Chime. You have spoken a lot. Before we open this to the floor to take some questions, and then we have the wrap-up. Earlier on, Sonny talked about housing, what people can afford. You see, the theme is housing we need. It is deliberate. It is not housing we want. Wants of man are many. There is not enough for every man's greed and want, but there's enough for every man's need. That is the theme of this program. So it's housing we need, and housing we need is end-to-end, right from the design, as Sonny talked about it, in terms of then even the components, the building components. Basically, what are the building components? The maintenance, incremental housing is part of it. You know what Samodia did, not too far away. I'm sure it will be around tomorrow. He did incremental housing. That's part of housing we need. You start with building a house. You want to go to 3 bedrooms. What you can afford now is a 1 bed. You start with a 1 bed, and then you can grow as you grow in income, you also grow in your house. So that is part of the housing we need. Also, let me also, not a response, but provide information. Reverend Chime talked about the issue of mortgage banks, how they underwrite. There is what we call Uniform Mortgage Underwriting Standards, approved by Central Bank. And that allows family income, combined income for underwriting. Yeah, so it is available in the market. And there are some banks who are doing this, which means combined income of the wife and the husband. Some have even gone beyond this. That's what we call generational mortgage. What do I mean by this? You find out quite a number of people who are 50 years and above. If you are going to retire by 60 and you are 55, you have 5 years to pay a mortgage. There is no way you ever qualify for a mortgage because you cannot pay it in 5 years. So we have generational mortgage. In other words, even when you retire, who are the inheritors when you are called by God? It will be, who are your inheritors? Your children. These are the people that will own this house. So even if you take a mortgage at 55, you also take the income of those who are working. After 5 years, maybe you are earning so much. You now expand the tenor to fit into the children's, their own income. So it is available in the market. It's a matter of design, and it's specialized. So there are quite a number of products, but it's specialized. So there are so many solutions in the marketplace for this as well. At this note, I will now go to the house. We have about 4 segments. So we have a question each from each segment, but then we'll now have the wrap-up by the panelists. Questions from that end? Okay, thank you, sir. The president, please. Can you have given the mic? That's President of NITP, Nigerian Institute of Town Planners. Thank you.
I appreciate the contributions of the speakers. While talking about the housing we need, I think one thing you seem to forget is the fact that housing is part of a system. It is part of the city system. Whenever the city itself is not planned, there is no amount that you can do in terms of housing that it will make sense, because it is related to every segment of the house, of the city. Now, by this I mean to say that some of the models we are thinking about, how much is it going to work for us? For example, we are talking about incremental housing. For example, like my brother from family homes, was talking about having a house and you have all the space around you that you can do all manners of things around you. Forgetting the fact that the population we had some years ago has not only tripled, it has quadrupled. But the land which we use, which we build on, is only decreasing. So how do we balance this? And the only balance I just want to comment is that let us, one of the speakers earlier in the day said that one of the things, the missing gap is planning. Now, let's take the Renewed Hope houses that were commissioned here in Abuja. Unfortunately, there was no plan for it. How do I mean? That some other person somewhere outside was the one that did what they call, it didn't go through the system of getting approval. No approval for it, except if they have done it now. How do we achieve our aim? You don't know whether it has met all the planning standards for the FCT. These are some of the missing gaps. I want to say that until and unless we give the system the form that it should take through land use planning and real physical planning, whatsoever we try to put in terms of housing will still be a mirage. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that intervention. Any other questions from the... Okay, next.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. When we look at the team that we have, it says financing the housing we need. In order to finance the housing we need, we must be able to establish the data sets that determine need, income, and the demographics as it relates to rent across the Federation. Where you do not have these at your fingertips, we are just like boxing in the dark, where we fail to hit the adversary. Homelessness will be a continuum where we do not have data sets that speaks to financing the housing that we need. How do we know what is the income set in Oshogbo or Ikire? Who are the people who need the housing in Mararaba? What do they do? Which demographics are we really speaking to? If government is going to be serious, it is very, very important that we do studies. This particular convention can take it upon, driving a study that determines, how we can be able to harness data with respect to rental. Secondly, financing itself cannot go beyond the rent. Rent must be able to pay for the mortgage. Where the rent is going to be unable to cover your mortgage, we are unable to finance the house that we need. How do we ensure that we have the capacity to bring interest rates down below the rent? Once we achieve that, we'll be able to finance the housing that we need. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just a quick intervention from me. Data. I want to let us know, we have a session tomorrow morning on data. It is the housing we need. What does data tell us? So that will talk about it. So please be ready. We hear a lot tomorrow about the data. It talks about household income. What does data tell us? We should be data-driven. That's the only way we can solve the housing problems. Thank you. I think, okay. In order not to be said to be gender insensitive, please, the lady, even though in the same segment, please, you have the floor.
All right, thank you so much. I so much appreciate this. Honestly, listening to all the speakers since morning, and it gives me hope for Nigeria. It gives me hope that we know the problems, but the issue here is resolving it. And the good thing is that all stakeholders are here, including financial institutions, government agencies, private sectors. But how do all these bodies come together to cure this particular problem? When Professor was talks about the slum. The 60% persons that we are talking about are, in terms of housing, they are in the slum. And we keep bringing out beautiful designs that those people don't even need. Commissioner talked about they don't want to pay some charges in terms of, charges in terms of, yes. So, for those people, that is not their problem. Their own is just, let me just get a comfortable place to sleep. And now we've had beautiful programs and we are looking at commercial bank. What is the role of microfinance bank in this whole thing that we are talking about? I work with Lapo Microfinance Bank and we have over 500 branches spread across the countries. In 34 states of the Federation.
We'll send the marketing bill to your company. Please, if that's your intervention.
No, that is not. I'm just trying to make a
fine.
point. Okay, fine.
So that you can just.
So 34, we are in 34 states and including federal capital territory. What I'm saying is that when we are making such things, all stakeholders should come together, including microfinance bank, who deal with people at the bottom of the pyramid to achieve the goal of what the government wants to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also want to bring it to the hearing of everybody here. We have a session tomorrow, Housing Microfinance, Fact or Fiction. Housing Microfinance, Fact or Fiction is taking place tomorrow as well. So we'll hear more about what the microfinance institution banks are doing in terms of housing. And of course, we hear from the mortgage banks. A lot of them are here as well. And we'll hear what they are doing and what they can do even more. Thank you. Sorry. Okay, please. If you have more ladies, I can overrule this gentleman. We want to be that sensitive, but since we don't have, we have no choice. Let's take him on.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. The president of Town Planner Association just spoke about the Renew Hope housing scheme. I want to speak on behalf of Redden. I'm a chairman of one of the states. I got a call a few days ago from my member that there's a launching of Renew Hope. My name is Martins, the GMD of Boeing Luxury Estate. That Renew Hope launching happening all around the states. And Redden Association is not involved. I'm happy there will be opening ceremony here tomorrow, and the people at the corridor of power will be here. If town planner can alluded to that they are not consulting planner. The real estate, the umbrella body of developer in the country, are saying they are not consulting us. At Redden, we've done extensive data collection, research of home buyers, off-takers in the time past. I'm happy the past president that initiated that scheme is here with us, Reverend Chime. But now a housing scheme is coming to reality without consultation with people that have done a whole lot of work. I sincerely hope that that housing scheme will be reality if people in the real estate are not consulted. That's on one side. They are coming tomorrow. I hope we can talk to them. Secondly, to InfraCredit Chief Operating Officer, I appreciate the angle you took, the financing, paying back ways. If project is not going well, there are things to fall back on. Wonderful. But the area I want us to look at critically, Forex, foreign exchange fluctuation. 3 of us here were in UK just 2 weeks ago. We were there when the election was won and lost. Immediately after the swearing or the coming of the new government, announcement was made of 1.5 or 1.6 million housing units to be built in UK. This will be backed up by the financial institutions. Here, the question we are being asked out there, that if we give you money to do projects in Nigeria, how do you get the money back? In our currency, we are giving the money to you because of the fluctuation of exchange rate. I don't know whether InfraCredit has a means, an edge on this, because there's an experience. 4 years ago, there was a finance that came from outside the country when dollar was about 380 to naira. 380 to $1. Along the line, dollar jumped to about 1,300. And went back to the financial investors that we cannot continue the project. We want more money. They asked us why. We said exchange rate. Said, no, we pay you in dollar. And we pay you 80%. Go back and finish the project because the exchange, we didn't pay you in naira, we pay in dollar. And 80% was paid to guarantee that there's no review of the project. I really want to listen to if there's a way to guarantee this or to edge this foreign exchange fluctuation. Thank you.
Thank you. So do you have a quick response for him on that?
Yeah, I mean, our focus is on local currency financing, right? So we're mobilizing pension money that's already in Naira into these projects. So there's no magic bullet for foreign money coming in to say you're going to earn your foreign return. What the Dangotes and everybody else do that put equity in foreign currency, they're taking a long-term view that over 20 years they will ultimately earn their return. But again, the risk of financing in foreign currency is immense. The Naira can devalue by 50%, but inflation might only be 25%. They're not in sync. Over a 10 or 20-year period, you'll find that they are in sync over the long run. But over 3 to 5 years, it's often very risky to be financing in foreign currency and to be expecting to get your money out in 3 to 5 years. So apologies, I don't have a better answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On the back of that, and at the back of that, we recognize the convenience of this program, recognize the effect of foreign exchange, Naira devaluation on the cost of buildings and properties. And that is why we have a session on day 3 as well, building better, building cheaper, local manufacturing of building components for housing a low-income economy. If a lot of these things are imported, are being produced here, what we want to do is to encourage, one, the importers here in Nigeria to work with their foreign suppliers to establish local plants here in Nigeria. That will reduce the exchange component, right, for it. If you have more local manufacturing there, the cost will be more stable. It's a lot easier for you to plan. And for that session as well, that's why you also bring in here the Deputy Managing Director of Lekki Free Zone, Mrs. Bola Tito Ajibode. They are providing space already, and they will talk more about that to encourage. They are providing an enabling environment for people to site their plants in Nigeria in Lekki Free Zone. There are a lot of incentives. If you're able to do some of these things, that will indirectly reduce the overall cost of building. That will speak to that. If I can source here, I don't need foreign exchange so much. I need just a little bit of it. So as I said, you are looking at all the endpoints. There are so many parts and pieces of this jigsaw puzzle. It's a big jigsaw puzzle. And look, how can we fix each end of it? And that will address that. Thank you. Prof, I think you have, yes, Prof. Even though you're in the same segment, since I'm not a professor, I must give yield to a professor to speak. Thank you.
Yes, I just want to...
Sorry, why is the mic?
Where is the mic?
Hello, who has the mic?
On a very lighter note,
Yes.
there was this boy who was always following his father to his workshop. And they were loading containers. They were loading crates. So the staff will come to his father and say, oh, we can't finish this task with 4 men in these 2 days. And the father will say, we'll tell the supervisor, put more men. So the following day, they will come and say, oh, this task, we can't do it in 2 days or 4 days with this number of men. The father will say, put more men. So when they got home one day and they were discussing, the mother said, they were discussing with the dad, that the boy said he needs a younger one. He needs a baby because he's only son. And the father said, we are finding it difficult to have another baby. But the boy now suggests to the father, why can't we put more men? And the father said that it's not everything you put more men. It's not everything you put more men. You see, the solution to Nigeria housing problem, that's why we are looking at it. And I'm so happy with what Mr. Ogrino said. that this program will be as flexible as possible so that we can address. We have had times coming up like, let's get cluster, that we can have a prototype in Nigeria, socio-economic, different socio-economic background. We have agreed on that. But let me say to you, sir, because I want to seize this opportunity. The problem of Nigeria, we can solve most of this problem if at all we look at transportation. Transportation alone. I know so many people. I have access to housing units at Ijebu Ode that are vacant, only used during Christmas. Ijebu Ode to Lagos is, for heaven's sake, about 105 kilometers. Distance more than that. People work in London and live in Luton, live in LK, live so far away. So, me and looking, as long as we concentrate on this new bill, we may be getting it wrong. And that's where town planning comes in. When we miss out of regional planning, looking at the transportation network, taking audit of houses in Korodu, I know many of the staff of University of Lagos who have built houses in Korodu through cooperative, but they rent a flat near Akoka because of transportation problem of coming daily. So if we have efficient transportation system, we can release so many stock into the market. So we in this program, we have to be holistic, not necessarily mortgage as its role. The segment of the country that is taken care of, we make sure at this meeting we resolve. Those that are living in some, we resolve. Those who are living far away, that have houses, but living in Shagam, living at Abeokuta, we resolve. And I believe that at the end of it, we'll be able to provide houses that we need. Cluster people into different clusters and solve their problem as they are. The high end will take care of them through mortgage. Those who will never afford, because there are so many people, make the rent 10 kobo. They cannot afford it. These are people living in projects all over the world. They call them projects in America. And because that you are living in a project today does not make sure you are a liability now, but after 3 years, these people begin to pay tax. Because quite early in the project, they were learning a trade, they give tax to government. So all this thing is win-win. Government must just come to the knowledge that housing is a key to solve the national economic problem. And this year we must get it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Now, before I take the last comments, right, I think what Prof has said is not out of place. We know what has happened in Lagos. Since the Lagos State government commissioned the blue line, right? The one that goes up to Kokomaiko, goes to Orile and all of that. We can see the massive movement of people moving in the morning, in the afternoon. Certainly, because of this connection, the land values have gone up in those areas. More people are ready to live in those areas because they know it's easier for them to commute daily. That is important. And I think we need to have a handshake. It's not only within Lagos. For instance, the governments of Ogun State and all of that, they must find a way. Because if you have a way where we have train connection to Lagos, there will be more demand for housing. All those empty houses there will be taken up in Ogun State. If it goes up there, people are living there. They get more tax payments. More tax is more money for what? Infrastructure development. So a lot still can be done. I guess that's the last comment from the floor. I will now yield to my panelists for the wrap-up comments, 1 minute each, and then I'll give the closing remarks, and then we'll call it a day. Thank you so much. Chief Operating Officer of InfraCredit, you have the floor.
All right, thank you again. I think everyone has highlighted how interconnected everything is, from the supply side to the demand side, trying to sort out mortgage solutions, to making sure that the lenders or the developers are actually protected. If you try rent to own and the tenant doesn't want to leave, you have to be able to get them out. So you have to work in the legal structures that actually make sense. I can give a little vision. My parents married very early, at age 19 and 20, didn't go to university, didn't have very good jobs at that age, having not gone to university. And they could still get married and get a 30-year mortgage in 1972 at what, 17%? And it was fine. They could do that. Even with my dad losing work, finding work, losing work, finding work, and my mom working in the family restaurant, they were able to keep paying that because housing's essential. You will pay that money. You will borrow from mom and dad. You will pay your mortgage if you intend to stay in that home over the long run. So that is possible for any really urban area where you can see some form of formal employment. It can be a little more difficult with the markets, the traders, but even they can establish predictable income. They can see, okay, this person is actually making money every day, every week. It's predictable income. So certainly this is something we can crack, but it takes a lot of actors working together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, we'll take the closing remarks from the Honorable Commissioner for Housing, Honorable Moruf Akinderu.
Well, thank you very much. I just want to chip in on what Professor Nubi said. It is very, very essential, especially when you look at Lagos example. That's the reason why we are, the last station of Red Line is in Agbado, and Agbado is Ogun State. We are encouraging Ogun State government to join us to extend it to Ijoko. And then if you also look at what we are doing around Ekpe, you see that we are developing the entire assets that you can easily come in. Now, if you go to Ekpe, because of the road that we are rehabilitating along that Ekpe, you come through Ijebode. And we encourage Ogun State also to join us from where we stop at Ekpe, and they have done their part. But what I want to just say to round up this is that in our own experience, we are a subnational. And we have done a lot of work, and we are to make Nigeria proud. I'm talking of Lagos. But the center needs to change that perspective of looking at Lagos as too comfortable. Because when they hear our budget, but what about the other challenges?